Who is the most divisive politician in South Africa? The person who divides opinion more than anybody else, the person who somehow manages to bring their party a lot of fans because they've got a lot of loyal supporters, but also drives away a lot of potential support and voters from that political project, because that's what being divisive is, right? It's having lovers and haters. The reason why I'm thinking about that this week is because Helen Zille has got to be up there. She's got a Showmax roast coming out. More inside scoops on that soon. I've got some juice about that I'm not going to talk about yet. But she's also been speaking out against race and gender and disability quotas within different business sectors and government departments. I disagree with her completely, but that's not what this episode is about. She is a perfect example of a divisive politician, somebody whose part of her fame and success and popularity amongst her supporters is actually just how much she pisses off the enemy. Like, that's part of it, right? Like, her vile transphobic comments a few weeks ago in the wake of that UK court ruling, where she basically gave a shout out to J.K. Rowling and said that ideas around trans identity were as if not more damaging than the COVID pandemic, like inflamed and enraged people, most of whom probably already hated her. I mean, maybe people who hated her for saying that we had to be thankful for some parts of colonialism, because without colonialism, how could pipes and water piping and maybe bricks have ever made it to Southern Africa? Because according to her philosophy, the only way that technology transfers between places is through conquering and oppression. So she's a great example. But then I was thinking, who's the most divisive politician in South Africa? People who come straight to my mind potentially are another DA person, John Steenhuisen, although I don't actually think so, because I just don't think that there are a lot of people who actually support him. I think there are very few people who actually vote for the DA because of John Steenhuisen, and there are far more people who think that he is the worst. And so yeah, that's the interesting thing about talking about most divisive, is you need to first figure out who everybody or the most people have an opinion about, and then figure out whether they have lots of supporters and lots of haters. Because McKenzie, for example, has few million, maybe hardcore fans, and maybe a few million people who really loathe him. But the vast majority of South Africans have no strong opinion on McKenzie. He's just the guy who stands next to the Springboks and does not fund the arts. And I actually don't think most people even know that. So McKenzie is not someone, Herman Mashaba, another, Musi Maimane, another, who I just don't think enough South Africans actually care about to put in this conversation. But Malema, Ramaphosa, and Zuma, all South Africans seem to have strong opinions of, and they all have hardcore supporters and hardcore detractors. And so let's talk about who is the most divisive South African politician, particularly because we in South Africa today talk so much about divisive this, divisive that. Is NHI divisive? Is Expropriation Act divisive? Is this person divisive? Is that person divisive? And so many politicians often say we mustn't be divisive. We mustn't divide South Africans. We must build South Africa together and have unity. But ironically, many of those politicians drive South Africans apart more than they bring them together. So that's what we're talking about today. Oh, and I must quickly mention, which I actually haven't mentioned on the show yet.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, that the first event of Wouldn't You Like to Know is tonight. Tickets are sold out, and don't rock up because there's no space. But my favorite thing about university was that I'd meet really smart, really passionate people who knew a lot and had interesting knowledge, and we would go out to bars and we would drink and we would talk and learn from each other and be entertained by each other for hours. That's what I loved, and that's what I love the most in life to do. And so we've created an event series that does that. Tonight is our first one at the Gin Bar in Cape Town. We've got Zaki Ahmad speaking on how to create effective social justice movements, the Humans Narrative, aka Armand Hoog, to speak on how to be a phenomenal photojournalist. And we've got Megan Taplin, who is the manager of the Table Mountain National Park, to speak on what happens next after devastating fires. Follow Wouldn't You Like Talks to find out about the next event and how to get tickets and who's speaking. And even if you're not in Cape Town, follow it, because there's huge interest, and we might do one in Joburg and Durban and Pretoria soon.
Well, I was going to ask, can we set some ground rules?
Okay.
Here?
So I'm going to throw out a name. Jacob Zuma, I think, strong argument for most divisive South African. Let's look firstly at people who adore him. The ANC has crumbled in popular support since Zuma was kicked out. The MK party he built from scratch in like 6 months, that then became the third biggest political party in South Africa and still basically runs off of his name and brand. There are people who swear by him and say that he's a champion of the people who's trying to take on and destroy the elites who are trying to push him out. He's a champion of the everyman. He's an inspiration for many Zulu people. His brand is so powerful that he was able to create a political party from scratch that came third and got millions of votes within 6 months. That is, I don't think anyone else in the country can do that.
Yeah.
On the other hand, so many people loathe Zuma. They believe all of the stuff from the state capture inquiry. They believe the allegations, which have a ton of evidence about Zuma and the Guptas, and about how he hollowed out and unbelievably damaged and hurt South Africa's economy, its people, its industry, its state and government departments that are supposed to help people. Many people, even ANC voters, blame him for the downturn in the ANC and the country. Many people who've never voted ANC hate the man. And so that's what I mean. I think he has a good shot to be the most divisive South African, where you say his name in any context, people are going to get hot under the collar, I reckon.
That's a very long answer, Dan, to just tell me, no, there are no ground rules. It's just the word divisive.
Okay, fair. Are you happy with the ground rules?
Yeah.
Okay.
The fact that there are none. And
No,
we're
there
just going
are.
divisive. I'm just joking.
I told you, divisive means lots of fans and lots of haters and reasons for both.
Right.
That's all.
You know what? It's interesting because I think it just depends on like your personal perspective and also the politics that you're into. Like, I think for a lot of white people, you know, that are supportive of the DA, for example, they're going to have a different name in mind to someone who, you know, has Helen Zille at the top of their list.
Totally.
So it's an interesting conversation. I definitely think Jacob is top 3. Okay. I haven't quite decided who's number 1, 2, or 3
but he's
yet.
on the podium.
He's definitely on the podium. I think I want to say Helen's up there too.
Yeah.
And then it's probably got to be Julius, right? Even though he's calmed down a lot and in general, and since pretty much the elections and even just the run up to the elections.
Yeah.
But I think if you had to look, are we looking holistically, like historically as well? Because I think if we're mentioning all that Zuma stuff as well, it's also a while back. So like it makes sense to also include Julius here.
I think Malema changing his politics in the last year or two has not changed the perception of him in South African common life. And Malema really became an icon for the economic freedom fighters and built, again, that political party to be third. Now it's the 4th biggest party in South Africa in quick time. Became somebody who, particularly wealthier, particularly white people, particularly DA voters, but many, many, many people think is like 2 seconds away from being a fascist, is 2 seconds away from being a communist who would destroy the country, is someone who is genuinely scary, will come and shut down cliques over a race allegation or whatever.
Sure.
And so I think that he also really, really inspires hatred and fear. I think for a lot of the more racist end of the particularly white or at least not black South African spectrum, because I include colored people who I have heard speak on Malema and Indian folks, he represents the swart gevaar, like the dangerous black man. And again, this isn't my opinion. I'm speaking on the perception. But on the other hand, for many black South Africans, he is a champion. Yeah. He is a haymaker who is not just going to sit on his tender money like the ANC does, not just going to allow slow decay and enrich himself, not just going to accept South Africa as it is and do little to change it, but he is going to aggressively and decisively fight for Black South Africans, impoverished people, fight against injustice, cause disruptions in parliament, call out powerful politicians, go to businesses and take a stand against them, and enable many, many younger South Africans, particularly younger Black South Africans, to feel like there is someone powerful fighting for them and their futures. I mean, it's in the name, economic freedom fighters. And there are a lot of South Africans who adore him and think that he is the exception to the political rule. So yeah, I think Malema is another one of those.
I'll just go ahead and say that's my top 3.
Zille, Malema, and Zuma.
Yeah.
Do you agree with me that not enough people actually even like Steenhuisen to be in the chat?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think people vote for the DA for Zille and a bunch of other people. Yeah. I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that John Steenhuisen has caused even one person to vote for the Democratic Alliance.
It seems largely unimpactful.
I mean, under his leadership, they did go back nearly 1 million votes from the My Money years. I know that by percentage, they're like 1%, but that's just because fewer South Africans voted overall. I think Steenhuisen, like Mashaba or Malema, is one of those examples of there are some people who have strong opinions, for better or worse, but not a lot.
Yeah. I think if this conversation went just Twitter or something like that, I think there's a lot of other people we could include. But I think Helen would top that Twitter list, to be fair.
Okay, dark horse.
Yeah.
Many people really hate Ramaphosa.
Yeah.
Really hate him.
That's true.
Like, a lot of people believe that Cyril Ramaphosa is what the state capture inquiry found Zuma to be. Like this evil businessman presiding over the ANC, making everything look schlick and lekker, but actually presiding over incompetent service delivery failures and collapses. And to be fair, there's a very live argument about that, about some people saying, yeah, but a lot of the stuff Ramaphosa has been having to mop up is the residue, the hangover of the Zuma years, where Zuma caused so much damage to our key institutions, hollowed out key functions of our state. Ramaphosa's administration then had to remove all of Zuma's old allies and people who were still benefiting off corrupt money from state capture, and then try to bring life back to a lot of these state institutions. And then other people will say, but yeah, he hasn't actually done that. Like, one of the things is that the NPA still is completely incompetent. Service delivery is still failing in lots of places. A lot of people say that he is a weak leader who just dodges the bullet on doing anything by constantly calling another committee or another inquiry or making somebody else do the work that he doesn't want to do, or like stay out of the spotlight. And so, yeah, there are some people who think that Ramaphosa is just this evil person who Zuma, other people say, was, who is just part of the ANC rot and destroying the country, and the service delivery is the worst and the corruption is terrible and pala pala. There are other people who say that Ramaphosa, and the data supports this, he's still the most electable politician in South Africa. He's still the most popular when you measure by who somebody would vote for. He's far more popular than any other politician or even his own political party. The question becomes, is he equal parts hated? To think about divisive. And I'm not sure how divisive he is. He's got haters and people who are very upset with his presidency. But I don't know if the vitriol, I don't know if the felt anger is as intense.
I think it's an interesting one to put him in the bag, if you will, in the hat.
In the mix.
This mix, yeah. Because he's the president of South Africa.
Yeah.
So he's got the most attention, arguably, which means he potentially has the largest audience to perceive him as divisive.
Right.
Whether it be Bella Bill being signed in, they're going to teach sex to our children. All of that stuff, land expropriation, all these things. I feel like people that when they think about those things, they don't necessarily, yes, they associate it with the ANC, but they specifically associate it with him as well because he's president at the time.
Yeah. They associate everything they don't like about the South African government with him.
Yeah.
And so there's the most fertile ground for him to be hated.
Yeah.
And I don't think he is loathed as much by his haters. And I don't think he has as many haters as Helen, Julius, or Jacob.
Interesting.
So I think that he's like dark horse, but I don't think he makes the top three.
All right.
To be honest.
Close spots.
Yeah, in the mix. In the mix. Everyone has an opinion on Ramaphosa, but I don't think it's necessarily a particularly strong one.
Okay, that's fair.
And yeah, I think he's got fewer haters than he's got people who love him, but I think broadly it's just not that deep. Whereas Julius, Jacob, and it's deep.
Yeah,
it's like hectic and personal. Okay. So yes, I agree. Our top three have enough hardcore lovers and enough hardcore haters and enough cut through, i.e. basically any South African has an opinion about them. But who's 1, 2, and 3? Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Okay.
I'm going to go out here on a limb. I think that Malema is third because I think that he has got the fewest lovers and haters of the top three. I think he's got fewer lovers and fewer haters than Jacob and Helen, even though his lovers and haters are very loud.
True.
So I think that Malema's fans are loud, and I think that his haters are loud, but I don't think he is as commonly divisive, known about, or as much of a person who inspires opinion as the other two. I think.
He's just got his moments, right?
Yeah.
And now that the EFF isn't, stopping Parliament from doing their job, I suppose.
And I guess in a very simple way, Helen has been in the DA, the second biggest party, for years. Jacob has been a defining person in the biggest party for years.
Well, they're both just old.
Yeah, they've been
It's been around for ages. You know what I mean? Like,
but being part of political movements that have garnered tens of millions of people's votes over 2 decades or longer. So yeah, I think Malema's third most divisive. And again, EFF people, relax. I'm not saying he's hated the third most. I'm saying it's divisive, as in most fans and most haters and most cut through relevance to the point where many South Africans would have an opinion. So then the question is Zuma or Zille more divisive? And that's really hard. That's really hard because Zuma's MK party got 15%. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure it was like 14.85 or something, but Erik's not going to tell me the truth. Zille's DA, and it is her DA, got 21%. So there are more lovers for Zille to the point of voting for her party than there are for Zuma. And the MK party did extremely well in KwaZulu-Natal, but very, very not well. Very, very poorly everywhere else. But it's hectic to think about Zille being more popular than Zuma, because Zuma also got the record-breakingly high votes for him. I think he and Mandela were the top 2 most voted for ANC presidents ever by count of votes, or at least by percentage of people who voted for them. So I actually don't know the answer to that. Was it 14 or 15?
It was right in between. It was 14.58.
Oh, I said 8.5. Damn it. But when it comes to haters, I also think that a lot of people hate Helen Zille and a lot of people hate Jacob Zuma. So maybe this is going to be a cop-out too close to call where I ask you to tell me what you think. Because, I can't split them, man. They certainly both bile rises in the throat amongst people who hate them when they hear their names. But also there are people who are hardcore fans of them both. But I think they are top 2. I just don't know who's not 2.
I want to say maybe Jacob is number 1.
Is the most divisive.
Yeah, again, because of the level of audience that he has.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's people in South Africa that are like, who's Helen?
Or at least what does she even do?
Yeah, because she's been out of the game for a while now.
Or as not much front and center.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And there are also many people who will never consider voting for the DA ever, because we still live in an ANC and Friends or ANC and Remains of ANC voting bloc.
And then you've got to consider within the ANC, you've got different factions. So there is a faction that didn't like Zuma and doesn't like Zuma at all, which is pretty much Ramaphosa's faction. Mm-hmm. So it's. I want to say that maybe Zuma's number 1.
I think that's a safe call.
Number 2.
I think that's a safe call. Okay. So we think, but we could be wrong, and this is a live debate. This is not a pronouncement, so let us know in the comments or on the WhatsApp line. We think that Jacob Zuma is the most divisive South African, followed by Helen Zille, followed by Julius Malema. Politician, to be clear. Yeah. Because when we start talking about Bonang or Maphorisa or MacG, it's a completely different conversation. But let us know. And of course, the reason why whether or not a politician is divisive is important is because, again, to be divisive, you have to be polarizing. So you attract fans because of your divisive positions, and you also drive away potential supporters, which is important for politicians. This isn't a question of who's the most likable, the most popular, the most likely to be voted for. This is a question of who polarizes the most and whether or not, on balance, that is good for their political project or bad for their political project. So excited to see what people say.